For centuries, roughly 1 out of every 3 rubles that flowed into the Russian treasury came from a single source. Not gold, not furs, not oil. A clear, tasteless liquid sold by the state to its own people. The empire was, in the most literal financial sense, addicted to it. And in 1914, at the outbreak of the First World War, Tsar Nicholas II did something almost suicidal. He banned it. Overnight, he wiped out 1/3 of his own government's income at the exact moment he needed money most. 2 years later, his dynasty was gone. The liquid was vodka. Today, that same drink sits on the bottom shelf of every supermarket. Cheap, clear, and famously flavorless, the neutral base of 1,000 cocktails. It is the most unremarkable bottle in the shop. So how did a drink that tastes of almost nothing become the financial backbone of an empire, and one of the fault lines it cracked along? Vodka was never just a drink. It never was. The name simply means little water, and where it was born is one of the most bitter arguments in the history of alcohol. Poland and Russia both claim to have invented it, and neither will concede. The earliest written appearance of the word is Polish, from around 1405, though back then it referred to medicines and cosmetics. Russia points to a grain spirit its monks were distilling in the 15th century. No one has ever truly settled it, and both nations guard the claim as a point of fierce pride. But on one thing the early history agrees: vodka began as medicine. Distillers across Europe called their early spirits the water of life. Vodka was rubbed on wounds as an antiseptic, swallowed as a painkiller, used as a base for herbal cures, and even poured into gunpowder. It was born in the apothecary, not the tavern, and for a long time it was closer to a chemical than a cocktail. The Russian state, however, quickly saw something far more useful than medicine. It saw money. In the 1500s, Ivan the Terrible began setting up state-run taverns called kabaks, funneling the profits straight to the crown. It worked terrifyingly well. By the mid-1600s, 1/3 of the working men in Russia were in debt to those government taverns, and Peter the Great used exactly that debt as leverage to force men into military service. The state did not merely tax vodka, it got its own population hooked and then spent the proceeds. That bond between vodka and the Russian military never broke. Centuries later, during the Second World War, Soviet frontline soldiers were issued a daily ration of vodka, famously around 100 grams, to steady their nerves before battle. The state poured courage down their throats and sent them at the guns. This is also where one of the great myths of vodka comes from. The story goes that Dmitri Mendeleev, the genius who built the periodic table, scientifically calculated the perfect strength of vodka to be 40% in his doctoral dissertation. It is a wonderful story, and it is false. His 1865 thesis studied how alcohol and water molecules mix. Nowhere did it crown 40% as ideal. The real reason vodka is 40% is far more revealing. It was a clean, round number that made the government's alcohol tax simple to calculate. Even the strength of the drink was set by the taxman. Which brings us back to that catastrophic decision in 1914. When the Tsar banned vodka to keep his soldiers sober, the treasury hemorrhaged, people turned to illegal homemade spirits, and a government already staggering toward revolution lost both money and public patience. Some historians argue it helped push a fragile regime over the edge. And here is the twist. The Bolsheviks who seized power had long condemned vodka as a trick to keep workers drunk and obedient. Yet within a few years they quietly brought the state vodka monopoly roaring back, because they needed the cash to build the Soviet Union. The revived monopoly was so tied to the government that people nicknamed the cheap new bottles after the official who signed it into being. Vodka had funded the Tsars, and now it bankrolled the revolution that replaced them, and the factories Stalin was racing to build. If you are enjoying this, hit subscribe. We dig into the hidden histories behind everyday things every week, and if you would rather listen than watch, come join me on Spotify, where you can follow along and never miss an episode. The revolution also scattered vodka across the world. The Smirnoff family, whose Moscow distillery the Bolsheviks confiscated, fled abroad, and their name resurfaced in the West, respelled the French way as Smirnoff. There was just one problem. Almost nobody outside the vodka belt drank the stuff. So marketers did something brilliant. They took vodka's greatest weakness and sold it as its strength. It has no taste and no smell. That meant you could pour it into anything. And crucially, no one could smell it on your breath. One American campaign literally promised it would leave you breathless. One brand sold it as white whiskey, with no taste and no smell. The Moscow Mule cocktail, served in its distinctive copper mug, was invented largely to shift unsold stock. James Bond ordered his martinis made with it, and by the 1970s, this flavourless import had overtaken whiskey as the best-selling spirit in America. And because vodka tastes of nothing, it turned out to be the perfect blank canvas. Absolut turned its own bottle into one of the most famous advertising campaigns ever made. Grey Goose, created in the 1990s and marketed as a sophisticated French luxury despite vodka's humble peasant roots, sold to Bacardi for around $2 billion. People were paying premium prices for what is, stripped down, purified water mixed with grain alcohol. The emptiness was the entire product. But the state's oldest addiction always carried a body count. In 1985, the Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev launched a sweeping campaign against alcohol, slashing vodka production, raising prices, and even tearing up vineyards. Drinking did fall, and some lives were genuinely saved. But it tore yet another hole in the budget, sent millions to dangerous homemade and even industrial alcohol, and was so unpopular it damaged him badly. The deeper wound never healed at all. Researchers have linked vodka to a shocking share of early deaths among Russian men, a national tragedy that traces in a straight line back to Ivan's taverns. Today, vodka is the plainest bottle on the shelf and simultaneously one of the best-selling spirits on the planet. It is still clear, still nearly tasteless, still the thing you reach for when you want alcohol to disappear into whatever you are mixing it with. And that blankness is exactly why it has always been so easy to tax, to brand, and to abuse. So the next time you see that clear bottle, remember what is hiding inside it. A medicine from an apothecary's shelf. Two nations that still refuse to stop arguing over it. Taverns built to trap the poor in debt. A myth about a chemist that people still repeat. A czar who bankrupted himself by banning his own gold. An exile's name spelled the French way, a pitch that sold nothing as everything for $2 billion, and a campaign that tried to pour it away and helped crack a superpower instead. A drink that tastes of almost nothing has moved money, armies and empires. Vodka was never just a drink, it never was and it never will be. If this story surprised you, subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden histories behind the things we take for granted. We have got a lot more coming.